Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show. Hope you're doing good. Hope you are doing well this morning. It is match day, of course. Arsenal have the opportunity to get into the semi-final now of the League Cup competition if they're able to beat League One opposition Sunderland this evening. Looking forward to the game. Looking forward to hopefully seeing plenty of new players, and what I mean by that is some opportunities for the youth team, Patino, Balogun, of course, maybe some others, to get in and around the first team squad and get their chance in the League Cup, which would be fantastic to see. If you want to check out our preview from yesterday, I was joined by Alex Jones and Chris and Moss, who all joined me to talk ahead of that game, gave our kind of desired lineups and more. So make sure you do go and check that out. We are less than 10 subscribers away from 28,000. If you could, and you are not already subscribed to the channel, please do continue to show the support. We do this show every single day at 8 a.m. If you're making it part of your morning routine or lunch routine or evening routine, wherever you are in the world, thank you so much for doing so. And thank you for joining me. Good morning to Kaiser and Matt and Carl and Terry in the chat box. We've got Gooner0411, we've got Back, Essex Bloke, Manu, Stevie, Nick, we've got Richard, James, Jonathan, Mr. Ginger Gooner, Liam, we've got Kafumbe joining us from Uganda at 11 a.m. this morning. Ian's just finished work in Australia. Good to see you in the chat box, mate. Gary Pearson, Fala, Andy Love joining us too. Nukrit. We've got Petru. Hello, mate. Hope you're doing well. We've got Stephen. We've got EKK, AV, Dave Lennon. So many more of you. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, guys, absolute pleasure to have you in the chat box. Without further ado, let's invite you over to the Arsenal Way. We'll be doing, the guys will be doing a show at 9:30 a.m. this morning. I will be live on the channel straight after the game tonight for our match reaction show. There won't be a show straight after the game on this channel because I'm working this evening, but there will be. I will be doing the live show after the game over on the Arsenal Way, probably around 20 minutes after the final whistle. So make sure that you tune in for that. And not only that, but tomorrow morning I'll be doing the breakdown on this channel from my personal perspective, a solo perspective on the game. But tonight, I think I'll be joined by Chris or Bailey, one of the two, to talk about the game in a bit more detail. So I do look forward to that. Our first story, however, revolves around the FA Cup because there is no replays set to take place this year in the competition because of the situation with the pandemic. The FA have decided that they are not going to do any replays to avoid any further fixture congestion. That makes sense. It's not the best thing for teams further down the table who could therefore miss out on some financial gains from playing. If they're able to earn a replay, they can get another fixture. They can earn more money through gate receipts and stuff. However, if there is a short-term or a long-term lockdown, that may not even affect them in any way. For Arsenal, it's going to be a positive if we're able to go through with as less faff as possible. We have Nottingham Forest early in the new year. I'm hoping to actually get to that game. Or rather, that's the plan. So the opportunities available to Arsenal to go through in this competition are obviously bigger than that of other teams because we don't have European football to contend with. So we can target these cup competitions like we have done the League Cup, and hopefully we can make the semi-final of that this season. But what I would say is that I don't know if it's the same as the Carabao Cup because the Carabao Cup goes straight to penalties. I'm not sure if it's that. I don't know if we have extra time. I need to check that out. But there is no replays. There still will be no double-legged semi-final either. But that could yet change with the League Cup too. There's at the moment plans for it to be a double-legged semi-final, but there was whispers that that could change to just a one-legged semi-final, which would be much more preferable in the long term. Now, our first transfer line revolves around Nuno Tavares, who once again, according to ESPN, has been linked with a move to Manchester City. City, of course, without Benjamin Mendy for the foreseeable future. Their only other natural option there is Zinchenko. João Cancelo has been playing there too. But they're looking at Nuno Tavares as a possible option, knowing that he is out of the team most of the time because of the presence of Kieran Tierney, and that a move to Manchester City would certainly interests him without a shadow of a doubt. I wouldn't blame him for being interested in a move to the league champions and likely league champions for the rest of the season. But he is a fantastic player, and he's proven to be a very, very solid option for Arsenal in their squad this season, and fingers crossed will continue to do so. We've got him on a long-term contract. We don't need to sell him. And if we do sell him, then we need to look to be selling him for a significant profit than what we obviously paid for him in the summer window. It's part of what some teams do, that you do sell players on that you don't necessarily want to. It just means that we would have to reinvest and find another player to replace that cover position for Kieran Tierney. I don't mind it in the long run if we make a lot of money from it, but ideally I would want to keep the player at the club. It is part of being a football team. Buying and selling at profits is what's made clubs like Liverpool, etc., as successful as they are. Now, Garth Crooks has labelled Arsenal unbearable. He says he is the most consistent Arsenal player at the club, speaking about Bukayo Saka, and has been for the last season and a half. And the reason Arsenal find themselves flying high. I can't understand how such an ordinary team keeps getting these results. It's unbearable. Now, Garth, you do seem a little bit upset. I don't know, or rather, can't quite understand why you seem a little bit upset. It might be that you're an ex-Spurs player. That could have something to do with it. But to suggest that Bukayo Saka is the only reason that Arsenal find themselves flying high when Emile Smith-Rowe currently has the same number of Premier League goals as Cristiano Ronaldo without any penalties, bearing in mind that they've managed to consistently have one of the best back fives in the league, a very, very good goalkeeper. And let's be real, Arteta has improved things this season as well. And you've had some really good performances from the likes of Martin Odegaard, Alexandre Lacazette has come into the team and done very, very well. Tomiyasu's been brilliant. So to suggest that Bukayo Saka is the only reason that Arsenal fans and find their team flying high is, you know, a little bit biased is probably the word. So Garth, you know, try and enjoy your day. Try and enjoy the fact that Arsenal are far more than just Bukayo Saka. And, you know, smile. Smiling's good. It's Christmas. Enjoy yourself, mate. Alan Smith, however, has been suggesting that Arsenal should look towards Ollie Watkins as a possible option in the upcoming windows. He says Watkins is a striker I'd have thought Arsenal would look at. I'm not sure Steven Gerrard would be letting him go in a hurry. However, that kind of mobile central striker that will really threaten him behind defenders perhaps is a bit more like it. Now, of course, Alan Smith was questioning whether or not Dominic Calvert-Lewin was the right player for Arsenal to be looking into in the upcoming windows, and has instead suggested Ollie Watkins should be the player that Arsenal should indeed be looking at this season. One that I would certainly be very interested in us having. He's on my list of strikers that I'd be very open to Arsenal signing. And who knows, maybe he ends up becoming an Arsenal player if the club indeed do go for him in the upcoming windows. We will have to wait and see. Now, the final story of the day does revolve around the mercurial, elusive, and of course, very interesting Dusan Vlahovic, a player that I know a lot of people would like to see join the club in the upcoming transfer windows, but has remained elusive and has caused quite a lot of conflicting reports. Fabrizio Romano and Di Marzio have both reported that Arsenal have interest in the player, however, that the agents are not supposedly talking to Arsenal whatsoever. However, other reports that have emerged from other areas of the media, including Sky Sports and some Italian sides as well, like Calciomercato, Tuttosport, has suggested that Arsenal are indeed in discussions with Fiorentina about a move for the player. However, not so with the players' agents and the players' representatives. If Arsenal can do this deal, they should. That is kind of the bottom line. The idea of not signing a player that's not keen, if we can convince him to come to the club, fantastic. But what I would say is that we need to ensure that whoever we sign as the striker for either January or the summer has obviously got a long-term feel about them. And that is certainly something that you do get with Vlahovic as a very young striker, very, very high potential, good in the air. I say good in the air. It's actually in the area of his game that he should start to try and improve despite his height. Good with the ball at his feet, a brilliant clinical forward. He's got the opportunity this weekend to break Cristiano Ronaldo's Serie A scoring record for a calendar year, and could go over above what the Portuguese man set, which kind of shows you the level of scoring he has brought to his game at Fiorentina. We will wait and see if he indeed does end up moving to Arsenal. But my goodness, if Arsenal could get this done, it would be a hell of a coup to get into the side next season. But the level of conflicting reports is frustrating. But what it does suggest is the interest from Arsenal is still there. And that's something that we should definitely try to focus on. We're going to go into the chat box now and get as many of your comments and feelings and theories and queries as possible in the last 10 to 15 minutes of today's show. So if you do have any questions, throw them into the chat box and we'll go through them as soon as possible. Okay, then. That was a really unprofessional drink again. Sorry for those that feel it's unprofessional for us to have a drink during the show. Ridiculous. Let's go to Stevie in the chat box. Stevie, thank you so much for becoming a member. Really appreciate the support, mate. I'll see you in the chat box pretty much every single show. So thank you for continuing to support the channel. As I said earlier, we're only 10 subs away from hitting 28,000. Thank you so much for continuing your support of the channel, people, and with the morning shows, and of course all the other elements of the channel as well. It's been brilliant, and your comments and that do not go unnoticed by any shadow of a doubt. Let's go into the chat box then. Manu says, Tom, can you confirm if Dusan Vlahovic's pressing game is any good? I can confirm that it's not really. That's not what you're going to get from Dusan Vlahovic. You're not going to get a player that's pressing. I'm not to say that he couldn't be taught or encouraged to play that style, but that's not what he's been expected of at Fiorentina. Whether or not that kind of puts you off signing him, we'll have to see. But it's not something that he's known for, his pressing. So that may not be an element of his game that is too attractive for some people with the player. In regards to how much it would cost, Stephen, you'd be looking at probably your 80 million euro figure. It would be an incredibly expensive deal for Arsenal to do, but that's how much that you have to pay when it comes to playing for the biggest and best in Europe. Social says, how much would you demand for Nuno Tavares to leave for Manchester City? I think you'd be looking at £30 million for a player who's obviously joined 6 months ago. Played a fair few decent games, is already now acclimatised to the Premier League, has shown to be very good. We underpaid for what his value was. So, yeah, probably around 30 million is what I would ask for if you wanted to sign him. I saw people putting 100 million or so into the chat, but I think that's a little bit unrealistic. But, yeah, I'd ask for a minimum of 30 mil to sign Nuno Tavares. I wouldn't want to sell him, but I'd ask for at least that much. Dave says, surely we should play Chambers over Cedric tonight. It depends on who's available because, of course, if Pablo Mari was here, then I'd agree with you. But because he's not, that does limit our other options somewhat. You could play Chambers at centre-back and then play one of the youth kids. Zach Swanson has been playing with the senior squad ahead of this game. So maybe we see a Zach Swanson come into the team. He's done very well for the youth side this season. Perhaps we see someone like him come into the side. Fraser says, I've never made a stream from Kansas City in the US. Much love. I've been watching you for a while now, and a big part of my mornings. Have a good Christmas, and let's hope we win. Thanks, Fraser. Really appreciate or Fraser, I don't know. But thank you so much for making one of the shows. Really appreciate it. Petru says, hi, Tom. After the Leeds game, should we rename the Emirates Martinelli Ground or Martinelli Stadium? I mean, he did kind of make that ground his own, didn't he? He was absolutely fantastic. Let's scroll down a little bit more. Dirks says, question, do you think our striker targets change if we get top four? Or do you think they'll stay the same? I think the club will try and keep them the same, but I think that getting the Champions League would open up plenty more opportunities. It would make signing a striker of Vlahovic's kind of calibre an easier task to convince the player that Arsenal is the right place for him and that this is a project that is certainly on the rise. Getting top four is going to be very, very challenging. We're up for the fight, it seems, and fingers crossed we make it, but it's going to be very, very difficult. Manu says, Fiorentina have already lined up Kwame as Vlahovic's replacement. If we were to sell Martinelli, how much would you want for him? And name one in-house replacement and one we could buy. I mean, yeah, Pedro Gonçalves would be an excellent option. But Martinelli is He's an incredible talent. You'd be looking at silly money to try and sign someone of Martinelli's talent. He's just signed a new contract. He's on a decent wage now, long-term deal. I daren't put a figure because I'd be scared of undervaluing him, but he's priceless to Arsenal at the moment with how expensive he would cost. So you'd have to put in some bids to convince us. I mean, considering that Barcelona bid 100 million for Richarlison, I mean, who would you rather have, Richarlison or Gabriel Martinelli? I'll let you make your mind up. Matt G says, do you think we'll be in a higher position than 4th spots at any point in this season? I doubt it. Even though Chelsea are within touching distance now, 6 points away, I still very much doubt whether or not we would be able to overtake them. It does depend on their form. We do have to go to Chelsea, Stamford Bridge, and try and get a result too, which is never an easy place to go, although we did win there last season. It would be very, very tricky to do that. But the more games they start dropping points in, the better, because obviously that would lend itself to making an opportunity to win that 3rd or 4th spot even better. They are playing in the League Cup against Brentford, continuing to have squad issues. Hopefully they get knocked out and Arsenal can progress even further in the competition. We don't know, Stephen, of any more positive tests. We're still awaiting any further news of that. At the moment, from what Mikel Arteta has said ahead of the Sunderland game, there's no one, but that can change very quickly with the daily testing that does take place. Blue Red Trill says, how valuable is Aubameyang in the current market? I actually discussed this with Mo and Lev on the Arsenal Lounge last night. Do make sure you go check out our hour-long pod on the Arsenal Lounge channel. I said that I think the club would accept close to nothing for him and just would pretty much want to get him off the books and get those wages off the books if they have the opportunity. But, I mean, I don't think that they're going to find anyone to pay a transfer fee for him right now. Nuni says 30 million for Tavares seems kind of low. At least 50 to 60 is more realistic. I genuinely don't think that's realistic. 50 to 60 million pounds for a player that's played 10 games since he moved for 7 million quid. I know that we rate him very highly, but that's just not what he's worth. I mean, looking on Transfermarkt, his market value is 6.3 million still. And I know that you may look at those as a very much of an undervaluation, and it is, but we only paid 7.2 million pounds for him. He's only played 16 games this season. His value has not gone to 50 to 60 million pounds in this market. We rate him very highly. We like him a lot, but he isn't worth 50 to 60 million yet. That's just not where he's at. Vuk says, Schick looks like an interesting target. Do you think he's realistic? I think he would be a realistic option if Arsenal were able to get into the Champions League and, put down the money that Bayer Leverkusen would want for the player. Bayer Leverkusen are pushing towards their own Champions League qualification, so that could complicate things, but I imagine that he'd be open to a move to Arsenal. Petrus says, do you think that we could propose Nazy Maitland-Niles plus Pepe for DCL? I don't think that Everton would entertain that. I think they would be looking for money only for any deal possible for Calvert-Lewin. Divya says Tom Tavares should only be sold for 50 million. That's not his price, but anything less is not worth our while. That I do agree with. Whilst I think his market value is probably 30 million, I don't think it's worth our while to sell him for that. I'd be wanting a hell of a lot more and I would want to keep him. Mario says Torreira and Bellerin are doing well on loan. How much money do you think we can generate for both players? Well, Torreira does have an option associated with his contract. In fact, let's have a look if we can find out how much that option is. I only think it's around 12 million quid. It is. Okay, so the Team Talk says, having found himself frozen out since Mikel Arteta's role, Torreira is on a season-long loan at Italian club Fiorentina, who have an option to buy the defensive midfielder for £12.8 million, so about 15 million euros. I imagine they will activate it because he's been doing very, very well. So Arsenal will make some money on that Torreira deal. He's worth more than that. And once again, we've undersold ourselves with the situation of a player, which is frustrating. In regards to Bellerin, though, he has having a very good season at Real Betis, which obviously will help us with selling him. In regards to how long left he will have on his contract at the end of the season, just having a quick check. His contract expires at Arsenal in 2023, so he'll only have 1 year left on his on his deal at Arsenal when he returns, which would lower his value. I imagine you'd be able to get something 15 to 20 million pounds maybe for Hector Bellerin in the summer window, and you'd hope there'd be plenty of interest in the player as well. We'll have to wait and see. Rancid says, do you expect we're going to sell Marie in January? Heard some rumours about Flamengo wants to buy him back. It depends if they're going to be willing to pay what Arsenal want. He's under a contract. We don't have to sell him, and he provides depth for the team. So if a team wants to come in for him, they're going to need to stump up some money for him. Virai says, is Zach Swanson any good to become Tomiyasu's backup? Possibly. The problem is we don't know yet how good he is at senior level. He's been doing pretty darn well for the youth side. In fact, if we have a quick look at his statistics for this season, he can play in a wider position in kind of a wing back and a winger kind of role, and has done in front of Alabiosu. And this season, he's got 2 goals and 1 assist in 8 games. 1 assist so far in 11 games in both the PL2 and the EFL trophy. So look, he's having a decent season, and he scored a brilliant. I think he was involved in Amari Hutchinson's goal a few weeks back against Leicester, was it? Where he did a brilliant run. It might have actually been the Balogun goal with the amazing flick and turn and strike, but he's fantastic at driving with the ball, and maybe he's someone that could come into the team. He's a different style of player to Tomiyasu. He's much more forward-thinking, but we'll have to wait and see. Vuk, still no news about Tomiyasu's injury. We'll have to wait for a press conference with Arteta, which would likely be, he'll have one after the Sunderland game. Whether or not we'll be asked about Tomiyasu's fitness, we don't know. But the next one will be ahead of the Norwich game, which will either be on the 23rd or or Christmas Eve will be when the press conference is. We'll have to wait and see. Billy says, if we can't get Vlahovic, do you prefer Schick or Calvert-Lewin, considering currently injury problems? I would still prefer Calvert-Lewin. I would hope that we would be able to sort out those injury issues. No guarantees. But Patrick Schick, looking at Patrick Schick's own injury record, let's have a look at that. Let's see if he himself has suffered with any significant injuries over the course of his career, injury history. Quite a few, to be fair. 1, 2, 3, 4 with Bayer Leverkusen, in which he missed 13 matches because of torn ligaments, knocks, torn muscle fibers. At Leipzig, he had ankle problems. He missed 11 games in one season. At Roma, he missed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 separate injuries where he missed 7, 11, 13, 14, 18 games across 2 seasons. So, look, Schick himself has also missed plenty of matches. So if you can look at between the two and injuries making you choose between them, I don't think that's enough to convince you otherwise anyway. Jack, if you want to check out my starting 11, go watch the previous show from yesterday, and you can find out all of our starting 11s, what we would like to see in tonight's game. Mario B says Tom Torreira and Bellerin. Oh, we've already covered that question. Michael says, would you take a straight swap of Pepe and Jonathan David? Absolutely, I would take a straight swap between the two. Avi says Tavares' City interest doesn't make sense. He's still raw, and you would think Digne would be more interested in them. Well, they tend to like signing a couple of Portuguese players down their time with Cancelo and Bernardo Silva and Diaz coming in. So maybe they're looking to add to that contingent. And Nuno Tavares has proven to be a very good Premier League quality left back so far this campaign. Thibaut says, are we getting carried away with current 4th spot, given that Spurs and Man United could overtake us? Of course they could overtake us, but they've got to take those games in hand. I don't think it's about getting carried away. I think it's remaining grounded and being hopeful that Arsenal can get to the top 4. We're hoping that they can. That'd be a brilliant achievement for this season. We will wait and see. Let's go to Jamie. He says, Guendouzi had 3 assists at the weekend. A stunning performance. He will be our worst loss in recent history. He may be one of our most undersold players, along with Mavropanos. I still find it odd that, the level of money we've associated with these deals. But we'll wait and see. Maybe something happens, something changes in the future regarding our sales. But Mavropanos, Guendouzi, Torreira, we are going to undersell them. And, that will fall partly on Edu, unfortunately. And it will fall partly on the previous regimes and the current regime for the situation that we found ourselves in with those players. I hope, Michael, that Balogun will feature tonight. Fingers crossed. Jamie says, how would you manage having 2 games less? How would you manage having 2 games in less than 48 hours on the 26th and 28th? Look, we've got a game against Sunderland this evening. What I would say is that Norwich away is a tougher game than Wolves at home. And the reason why I say that is because Norwich away this season for some sides has been a little bit tricky. Man United only scraped through with a penalty victory there. And the Emirates has been very, very good for us this season. So I would play a stronger side in the away game against Norwich, and I would rotate in a few players for the game against Wolves. Pick up that team that we used against the team we played against Leeds. Hopefully Tomiyasu will be fit. Use that exact same team against Norwich away, and then in the game against Wolves a couple of days later, swap in Smith Rowe, swap in Sambi Lokonga, who will hopefully be over his issues at that point. Bring in Tavares for Tierney. Hopefully Tomiyasu can remain fit. We'll have to monitor that. If not, bring in someone like Chambers. You can bring in, say, a Balogun maybe for a Lacazette, although you may not have to do that because Lacazette's proven to be quite fit. Pepe could possibly come in. I think we've got options. I think you rotate a few players, but it's what we'll have to deal with and what we have to do. And a lot of teams will also have games within such a short space of time. I think it's ridiculous that they've scheduled them in less than 48 hours, but we'll have to make a few changes. But I would target the away game at Norwich, ensure we get 3 points, build up momentum so we go into that Wolves game with confidence higher, and then swap out a few players. Then you can always bring players on a little bit later in the game. So there you go. Let's scroll down a little bit more and see if we've missed anything. Dazzler says Edu's best 3 signings. Tomiyasu, you would have to say, obviously been a big one. Ramsdale was more Arteta, as was White. But I mean, the thing is, when people talk about which signings were more Arteta or more Edu is the technical director. He's the one that deals with the finances. He's the one who deals with getting the deals done with Richard Garlick. So you kind of still have to credit Edu with getting the deals done and over the line. So I could argue that Tomiyasu, Ramsdale and Lokonga have been 3 of his best signings. I think Martin Odegaard is definitely one of them too. I mean, the fact that we even got him on loan last summer was a stroke of genius in my view, and it helped us push up, kind of improve our form. Didn't in the end help us get to where we wanted to be, but our form compared to the first half of the season when Odegaard came in and Smith Rowe was in the team was miles better. So Odegaard is in that top 3 for me. I think I love what Lokonga's done. I find it stunning that he's not in the team, and Tomiyasu there as well. So Lokonga, Tomiyasu, and Odegaard would be my top 3 right now. Oh, wait. I say Gabriel, but the problem with Gabriel is that kind of Raul was still here and involved. So I don't want to say Gabriel because I still think that Raul had a bit to do with that. Martinelli wasn't Edu's signing. He was Kajigal's kind of pet project. And so he was more involved with that along with other parts of the recruitment team and scouting. So I wouldn't go with Martinelli personally because I think he's, and that side of things, because Edu wasn't in full control of transfers at that point. Mogos says, how likely is it that we're going to get a look at Patino? I'd probably say about 10% chance. I'm never hopeful of seeing that level of youth in the team after what happened in previous rounds. We had Wimbledon and we still didn't use any of the youth team. So we'll have to wait and see. I'm hopeful that we will, but I wouldn't get your hopes up that you're going to see Patino, but maybe so. There we go. I think we're going to wrap it up there. We've just been going for nearly half an hour. There's nearly 500 of you watching. As I said, we're less than 10 subs, guys, away from hitting 28,000 subscribers. So if you could hit that subscribe button, I would be really appreciative of it. We are very, very close indeed. Thank you for your support. There is going to be another show this afternoon. I'm going to give you a tactical breakdown all around Dejan Kulusevski. So if you want to find out a little bit more about the Swedish international with some expert insight from Football Italia's Rich Horn, of course, now writer at Fiorentina and Inter Milan too. Then do tune in a little bit later on this afternoon because we will be doing a tactical breakdown on the Swedish international who's been heavily linked with a move to Arsenal. I look forward to bringing you that. I'm going to be live on the Arsenal Way after tonight's game. I'll make sure to share that on your YouTube feeds, but link to the Arsenal Way is in the description. And then there will be a solo breakdown of tonight's game on the channel in tomorrow's 8 a.m. show. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. As always, I will see you again this afternoon. Always a pleasure. And as always, up the Arsenal.